Hey, how's it going, you guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video today, I want to work on painting over a 3D render. And I feel like this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while now, but I never got the chance to. And I feel like in the past, I've always done it where I've kind of shown my Photoshop file, I've shown my layers, just broken them down. But this time around, I kind of want to just approach a painting from scratch after rendering it out in Blender and just kind of show you the process and the way that I work with these. So yeah, let's get started. So I had these two shots that I rendered out. So if you guys watched my previous video, the environment scene that I made was more like an establishing shot. So I thought maybe the next few shots could be more of like a close-up. And so I thought of working on two more shots. This was one of the shots right here of the monks going up the mountain. And then this right here is like an opening in the mountain where you go inside and then it takes you to a different place, which we'll work on in the next one. Before I figured out the design of this gateway, I did go ahead and do some more iterations. So there's this. So this right here was the initial sketching, right? I was like, okay, let me just figure out the composition. And so there wasn't really proper design happening with the gate itself. I just used some of the Kitbash set that I had and just put that up there. Even like the planks were just floating in the air. But then this gave me like an idea. It was more like a warm-up for myself to figure out, okay, which one works the best. So I was kind of like going towards either like number 2, number 4. And then for the designing part of the gate itself, I went ahead and did those in Blender as well. And these are just screenshots. You know, I feel like when I'm doing these iterations, I'd like to just take screenshots because then, you know, I'm going to sketch over on top of it. So here I was just looking at like the shape of the cave opening, right? There's this right here, this right here. Like the stuff on the right, that's irrelevant. We're just looking at this stuff right here. And there was this up here too. So I came up with like 6 different ideas and I felt like I was gravitating more towards this one and this one. So I kind of made like a mixture of these two. I feel like these were blending in well with the whole structure. And so from there, I ended up designing this kind of shape up here. So that's how I got to this part, and I did have a few render passes as well. So I'm gonna open up a new Photoshop file, import all of those in, and then kind of show you step by step how I approach these scenes. Okay. Alright, so I have my render passes up here, and in my previous video I go into detail on how I got these render passes and the process of doing that. So definitely check that out. But anyways, I have a clown pass, I've got a bloom, ambient occlusion, we've got mist up here, and then environment. So these are the 5 passes that I pretty much used for just to begin with for the most part. And the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to make a copy of my render, and I'm going to go up here to filter and go to camera raw filter. It's like a quick way of adjusting the colors and just color correcting it to some extent. And sometimes you can get some like really cool results. Usually I'll start with the light option, maybe play around with the exposure a little bit. You know, I feel like, you know, just tweaking these values a little bit, maybe contrast. Probably pull that to the left a little bit. Sometimes I'll just like go all the way left and right and kind of see the effect it's giving me, just to play around with it. Then shadows, this one kind of just like reveals a lot of the shadows. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is. And a lot of it is just experimentation also, right? Sometimes I like zooming out and just seeing, and if I like toggle this eye on and off, I can like see the before and after as well. And then the color, probably maybe the temperature if you want more warm or like more cooler. I think I'm gonna push it a little bit on the warmer side a little bit, just a tad bit. And then vibrance is pretty good too if you want to get some nice, I think vibrance, I'm gonna push that a little bit to the right so that I get some nice yellow tones up here instead of just being like blown out. Let's see, saturation, I'm gonna pull that. Actually, we'll leave saturation the way it is. Then the color grading, I think I'll just go to shadows and maybe give some like warmer shadows, just slightly. And you know, it's just like slightly tweaking these values a little bit. And I think that's honestly mostly what I do, just a little bit. I don't really go crazy with the camera raw filter, just playing around with those sliders a little bit. And there's like more stuff here, so you can definitely look into this. Lens blur is pretty cool actually. It's like a new feature they added, and you can kind of like blur out your stuff in the foreground. But I usually just use a Gaussian blur or a motion blur in the end, because I feel like if I blur it out right now and then when I start painting on top of it, it's just gonna like, it's gonna be pointless at that point because I'm literally painting over the blurred part, right? So I usually don't mess with it. But I feel like that's looking pretty good for now. I'm just gonna hit OK. And then sometimes I like to just look at it before and after And essentially I kind of like just brighten up the shadows a little bit because I feel like they were getting a little too dark. And the good thing is also that even if I go a little bit too bright, I can always, you know, make a new layer, put it on multiply, and just like paint a little bit of shadows. So it's always nice to like reveal more, and then you can always like hide parts of it later on. So there's that. And then let's go to the render passes now, right? I'm gonna hide all of these. So environment, this pretty much I use this to kind of like just make selections. Like if I go up here, let me see, sample our layers. So it's only selecting like the black parts. So if I ever want to like just select this part up here and paint a little bit, I can use that for it. And then I like using mist to add more depth to the painting itself. So if you make a copy of this, and just gonna go ahead and put this on. Usually either lighten or screen works really well. So if I put it on lighten right now, and then go to hit Control U, I'm gonna hit colorize, and I'm just gonna move this a little bit towards blue. And if I pull this to the left, kind of gives me this effect, but I feel like it's not really working that well with lighten, so I might probably just use a screen instead. I feel like I get better results with screen. Control U. Let's see, colorize. Yeah, screen is giving me a lot better results with this. So maybe like something like this, you know, a little bit bluish. And then I can move this left and right, my lightness. And so, you know, with that we got a little bit of depth. And also I feel like the mist pass, it's not super accurate. In this, it's kind of like a weird, I feel like it needs to be a little bit lighter in this side, so I'll probably tweak it a little bit more. I can also go to my levels and kind of adjust it that way as well. Move it left and right. Oh, sorry, like the middle part. Okay, like move this left and right to kind of control how misty I want this to be. So that's like the base, I want to say. We're going to start with that. And then ambient occlusion, we should just put it on multiply. And so it just brings back some of the shadows. If you take a good look at it, if you look closely, like some of the shadows up here, down here. And it can be super overpowering sometimes, so I usually just like bring down the opacity a little bit. And you know, it's a nice subtle effect. But in the background, there's this black color. So I'm just gonna select this and kind of like delete that. And then you can also use levels to kind of like just tweak those, the level of the shadow up here. And I like zooming in, zooming out as well. The other thing you can do, and then for bloom, you can put that on screen. You know, it makes it a little bit brighter. It's not working that well in this scene, honestly. I feel like bloom works a lot better for like interior shots when you have like light coming out from different light sources. It adds a little bit of glow. And you can put that on screen and that works really well. So, and then clown is just for like, I can actually bump up the saturation on this. Let's go all the way high. I can use it to like make selections. And then kind of like, you know, if I want to like paint stuff or whatever, I can do that with it. So it's looking pretty crappy right now, not gonna lie. I feel like my values are all over the place. We'll fix that though, not a big deal. And one thing that I'm also gonna do is that I'm gonna have a threshold adjustment layer. So you know, so the threshold, if you're getting a good read with threshold, it means like you're on the right track. And I feel like even after having those, you know, weird value structures, I still have a good value read up here towards the focal point. So I feel like we're still on the right track here with everything. And you can like hide parts of it and see how that's affecting it. And so next thing that I'm gonna do is that I'm actually gonna go ahead and put a sky up here. And on the mist pass, I'm actually gonna go ahead and delete this part. Oh, bloom is adding that black color too. I don't know why I got this black shade here. Sometimes render passes can be like super wacky. Honestly, we're not like super far away from the structure. It's like still pretty close. So leave that a little bit. Okay, let's go back to the sky. We gotta put some sky. So I have some images. Let me see if I can pull them up. Now this will go below my render so that it's behind this. So I'm just gonna like drag and drop them. We are pretty high up, so like I want to kind of show a lot of like clouds and stuff. And also I'll like go back and forth and see like my values as well. What I'm gonna do next is I'm actually gonna go ahead and hide my render passes, and I'm actually gonna make a layer where I'm just gonna like paint a little bit. And when I'm doing this painting, it's mostly kind of like just looking at the sand up here. It looks very like 3D, very blocky. So I'm gonna paint a little bit up here. Maybe I'll have a little bit of you know, sand, you know, flowing down here on these rocks, and then here as well. You know, you got these artifacts. Just paint a little bit down here. Maybe some more sand, kind of like just, you know, dripping down. Anyways, I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I mean. Kind of like just falling down from up here. And also just simplifying some of these artifacts. One thing you can also do is that I like doing that sometimes I'll literally just make selections like this piece right here. Let's say if I don't like that piece, right, I can like make a selection, right click on it, go to fill, and do a content aware on it and see if it like replaces it with something else. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it looks pretty weird right now. But you can use content aware for certain areas that you don't really like. Other parts the rest of it you can just like pretty much paint. And as far as the brushes go that I use, I actually use I have 2 brush bags that I use. Recently I've been using Eitan Zana's brush set. If you buy one of his tutorials on Gumroad, it should come with it. And the other one that I like to use is John Park's brush set. Also, if you buy one of his tutorials, you should be able to get them. So I highly recommend, watching their tutorials. Their videos are awesome. They're amazing. And they come up with like really cool brushes as well. I really like this brush right here. It has a nice grittiness to it. With this, I can like come up here, kind of like just paint some of this sand down a little bit. And then for my eraser as well, I'm gonna be using a textured eraser so that when I like erase it, I'm still adding a little bit of texture to it. And you want to like kind of like take your time doing this, right? You don't want to rush this part. I feel like after working on 3D renders, you spend so much time building out everything. This is the part where you can like finally like slow down a little bit, right? And just spend that 10% like painting stuff out, like already just doing a little bit of that, just if I toggle my layer on and off, it's adding so much to the painting. And maybe I like it right now, but when I start refining things up a little bit, I might just remove it. So it's one of those things where you just have to like go with the flow, go with the flow. Also look at references. I mean, and it's always good to have some sort of quality reference, I guess. So like I was looking at a lot of Jama's stuff. So like, he has this really nice way of, I don't know how he does it, but it's very photorealistic, but at the same time it has this nice painterly look. So that's the kind of effect I'm trying to get. Even if you look at Eitan Zana, he has this really cool way that he paints. It's pretty crazy. Like it looks pretty photorealistic, but then at the same time it's very impressionistic as well. So that's the kind of vibe that I'm usually trying to go for my pieces as well. And it's something that you just end up getting the hang of it with enough experience. I'm still trying to figure that out, if I'm being honest with you. So, it's one of those things where once you start painting more, things just start clicking eventually. So I'm going to go back up here. A little bit. And I feel like if you need a free resource for brushes, you can definitely download the Evident brush pack and also Imad Awan's brush pack. I'll link them in the description of this video. Those brushes are pretty good too, and they're like super huge. It's a massive library, so you can definitely find something up there as well. I had this rope up here that's just like it's just hanging. Oh god, I have a lot of those moments where I'll just see like stuff floating around that I didn't realize it was floating around in my 3D render, and I'm just like, oh god. One thing I'm noticing is that my character is getting like his silhouette is getting lost behind all this up here. So what I'm gonna do to pop him out a little bit, I might just add like a little bit of mist down here, like a cloud as well. feel like this part right here is kind of throwing me off. Like my eye, it's like a bright spot in a very high contrast area. I feel like my eye is just like going to this part instead of staying down here. So for that, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna paint out a little bit of that part. Let's close that. Maybe I can just do a content aware, see what that gives me. Oh, okay, there you go. Problem solved. Let's see. Yeah, looks a lot better now. I feel like my eyes are just kind of like staying in this area now. I feel like bloom is kind of messing it up a little bit. Probably just erase. Oh, just mask it. Mask it a little bit. And like I said, especially for like photorealism stuff, everything, since if you do spend a lot of time modeling, a lot of it is already done, and so it's just a matter of just figuring out the rest of it. I might actually, let's see, let's go up here, make another layer below my render. Yeah, I think that works a lot better if I just have that. Something like this. Yeah, that looks a lot better if I do that. I feel like that blue was just very distracting. Like I was just like, ugh, doesn't look that good. Like 90% of the time, just fixing like bad renders. That's kind of like the general workflow that I usually have, you know. There's obviously like different methods, different ways that people like to do. This is one of the ways that I've been taught how to do it, and you know, so far it's been working real good for me. But then I feel like with each painting, I'm like learning something new. So it's never really like a set in stone. It's always like, oh shit, this is not working anymore. Oh wait, let me try this other thing instead. Let me use the same mist pass, Control J, and let's put it on multiply next. See what that looks like. And I'm actually gonna mask it and just gonna like paint out the top part. I feel like I can also do, let's see, let's go to clown. Grab this guy right here. And let's go up here. Let's make a new layer actually for this. I'll just push this dude a little bit to the back. Yeah, that looks cool. With this piece also. Back just a little bit. And I feel like up here, like this part is what's throwing me off. I feel like I should have put in some more stuff closer to the camera because I feel like it's adding more fog up here. So let's go back to my, maybe if I, like this looks a little bit better than this to me, you know? So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go up here and I'm just gonna like mask out this part like that. Yeah, I feel like that looks a lot better because it was throwing me off a little bit. Maybe here, there's a lot of contrast here. So to get rid of contrast, you can also use lighten. Put that on lighten. Let's go back on full screen. It's like 2 a.m. God, I'm tired. I feel like I'm gonna get rid of some of that contrast on this side. And we still have so much more painting to do. I feel like there's so many artifacts that are just like bothering me. And what happens if you like leave your render passes on and then you color pick, it doesn't exactly pick the right color, you know? Because it's picking the color that's after the render pass, but then you're painting below those layers, so it messes it up a little bit. So always when you're color picking, make sure your layers are turned off, the ones that are on top of the paint layer. It's always good to like add a lot of detail to the area where your light is being hidden. The area where your light hits, it's nice to add detail in those areas. And wherever there's shadow, you can like sort of, you know, simplify it down a little bit. So that's why I'm like focusing most of my time, you know, on this part mostly. And you know, a good stopping point on your painter process is when like when you know that if you spend, let's say you reach a point where you can see that even if you spend like a couple hours more, it's not going to elevate it anything higher than it already is, then that's usually an indication of that, hey, you can probably stop on this painting and just, you know, move on with your life, do more things, do other things, maybe go get some coffee, I don't know. But that's like a good indication. Then usually I'm always like open to feedback as well, so I like post my stuff online to my Discord server as well, and it's always nice getting feedback from people, because sometimes when you're looking at this for like hours, you don't see some of the things that other people can see, especially people who are like more experienced than you. They'll like see certain things that you're not able to see, and it's really nice to have that kind of thing. Cookie break. I feel like it's getting a little messed up here. I feel like I want to fix this. I feel like that fog up here is messing up my read a little bit. So maybe I should tone it down. Go back up here, and I'm actually gonna, what if I just lower the opacity a little bit? I'm just lowering the opacity. See what that does. Just a tad bit. I mean, it's still up there. It's not super far away. It's still up there. Let's see what that does. Ah, there you go. It's a lot better. Maybe I can play around with it and see where the cutoff is. Because right now it's like that, right? 100%. Maybe 70% works. Yep. I need a little bit of separation between the guy and that rock up there. There you go. Let's go to the cloud. Let's add a clipping mask. Do you guys ever listen to music while working on art? If you do, let me know in the comments. I'm really big on like heavy music, but when I'm drawing, I can't listen to that shit. I feel like it just like distracts me. I get like too pumped up, and I'm like, oh hell yeah, and then fuck, I made a mess here. I don't think I can add a whole lot to it at this point. Maybe I can spend some more time just, you know, painting, you know, this part up here. One thing I can also do is that I can also do a color lookup, and you can just go down this list and see, and you can get some really cool results as well. So let's try again. Like this one looks pretty cool. 3 strip. Crisp warm. This is nice too. Drop blues. Fall color. This one looks nice. I feel like it's bringing back some of the yellow, not the yellow, like the orange part here. So like for example, let's say I want to keep this part, right? So what I can do, it also comes with a mask, so I can pretty much like just put a black mask and then change my color to white. Grab soft round, kind of like just do this kind of thing. And so it looks good if I like turn it off. Yeah, it looks nice. I wonder how my threshold looks with that. Oh yeah, so it's not. We're still getting a good read, so we're good. I think I was going through another one. Let's see, let's do another color lookup. And this time I want to look at my shadows. I want to get some more cooler shadows and see which one gives me that. Like this one, crisp winter, this filter. This could be one of them. And let's see if I can like paint just a little bit on where the shadow is. Let me squint. So if I squint at it, I still feel like, you know, I feel like the value read is still pretty good. Like I'm not getting distracted to where I'm going all the way. I feel like everything is like pointing towards the focal point up here. So I think we're doing good. Sorry guys, sometimes it's like hard to talk while doing this. I get it now. When I'm watching tutorials and stuff, whenever an artist says things like, "Oh my god, it's so hard to talk while drawing," I get it now. It really is. Sometimes you just get so into it. Like, okay. So at this point, I was feeling pretty happy with my piece, but I feel like I wanted an extra set of eyes to kind of look at it and just, you know, give me some feedback on this. So I went ahead and posted this on my Discord server, and a good friend of mine, Chris Falkenberg, you know, he's pretty legit. He's working at Blue Point Games right now, and we took a bunch of brainstorm classes together, and his stuff is super sick. And so he did a little paint over for me, and this is what he told me. So if I were to compare the two, I feel like what's happening right now, like what I had going on with my render, first of all, the path, I feel like it was abruptly just cutting on the edge, and it was just like abruptly ending right here. And the other thing was that it was getting a little too busy in these areas. Remember how I was like saying things like, hey, this part was just giving me a lot of trouble. So we decided that it'd be better if you put some sort of like a foreground element and kind of like move this whole render a little bit to the right as well. And so after getting that feedback, I went ahead and re-rendered everything. And so this was the new 3D render that I had. You know, added another foreground element up here. And, you know, I feel like it's definitely, the read is a little bit better now, right here. And I feel like it's one of those things, right, where sometimes it's kind of like, oh man, I gotta go re-render all this shit. And then you have to get all your render passes and stuff. But moments like these, always gotta remember that the more feedback you get on your stuff and the more you work on it, the better it's gonna be, right? So it's kind of like, it's part of the process. So you just have to like trust the process and just get through it. Because a lot of my pieces that were very successful were the ones where I got a lot of feedback on and I iterated on them a whole lot, which also meant that going back into Blender, you know, adjusting my render a little bit, my camera, re-rendering it. And I know it sucks in the moment when you're doing all that because you feel like you gotta do everything all over again, but at the end of the day, it's all worth it. So anyways, I got my render in, I got all my clown passes, render passes, all that good stuff. So now it's time to do a little bit of housekeeping, right? Because I feel like I have layers from my previous render and then now I have a new render, so I gotta like adjust that a little bit. My paint, so the background didn't really change a whole lot because it was below the render anyways. That's the new clown pass, ambient occlusion, environment. Let's take this paint. So this was my initial paint layer for the previous render. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna free transform and kind of like see if I can like match it somehow and like align it to my new render so that I don't have to do a whole lot of painting all over again, you know. And then from here I can just erase parts of it and then just repaint on top of it. Like I feel like up here it looks pretty okay. I probably have to like erase most of this as well, and then this obviously. Remember I used content aware on some of these parts, so I can probably go back up here. I'm just experimenting to see if this is actually gonna work or not. If I copy that, bring that up here, go to levels. A little bit to the right. There you go, that works. I could mask it also, but I don't feel like it. Okay, so I got that figured out, and then I'm just gonna have to repaint some of the areas real quick. And, you know, like some people, they're pretty comfortable in just, you know, manipulating the existing render and just fixing that up after iterations, but I feel like whenever I try doing it, it just looks weird. So I always go back to Blender, just readjust everything. And I feel like it's all about, when you reach a point where you're just comfortable with your workflow, you can easily, make these changes. And so I feel like it's very important to kind of like reach a point where you're comfortable with the program, where you can like constantly go back and forth with it and not just, and not stress about it. You know what I mean? Like the biggest issue that a lot of people I've seen have is that re-rendering everything, because I feel like sometimes rendering in Blender can take so long. But my renders literally take me like 5 minutes, and I don't have any crazy GPU or anything. It's just tweaking those settings a little bit, and I've gone over my render settings multiple times on this channel. So definitely watch some of my previous videos. You can watch my last video as well, and I kind of go over my render settings in that video also. So if you follow those settings, you should be pretty good, honestly, and should be able to effectively iterate as well, to the point that you're not wasting any time waiting for it to render. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with something like this, because I feel like this looks better than when I had this, because looking at it closely now, like I don't want, this thing is disrupting the shape of this gateway, and I feel like I like it a lot better when there's a nice flow, when there's this flow happening and then this happening. So we're just gonna go with that. Sometimes I just have to like really zoom out and just look at it for like a couple minutes and just see how I feel about. It's gonna get super annoying sometimes, but at the same time, it's also fun. I feel like when the results come out good, it's fun. Now I do see there's just a little bit of a tangent on this dude's head, so I'm gonna paint that in towards the end. I don't know. I definitely think art is subjective to the point where I'm seeing certain things that I like, and the feedback that I got is different. But at the end of the day, I have to like make a decision like what I want to do. So I feel like this is a pretty good stopping point for this, if I'm being honest with y'all. And let's go back and look at my layers. Let's do a little quick layer check. Now, when I'm done with my piece, right, I'll go back to my layers and kind of like start cleaning things up a little bit. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, everything looks pretty organized. So all of this up here, so this pretty much is the sky. I'm gonna put this in a separate group, call that sky. So the render, and these were just extra render stuff that I copy pasted, right? Like fixing this part and all of that part. And then this up here was this part right here. Normally I don't have these three elements. It's just one layer, but because I moved stuff around a little bit, that's why it looks that way. And then this was the old render that I had. So I can go ahead and delete this now because I don't really need it anymore. And then this was the clouds up here that I used to silhouette this guy out just a little bit, and then color corrected that. And then this up here was another fog pass, just to put a little bit of fog on this part here. That's what that was. This was just a selection that I made for this. And then this was a lighten layer that I used to kind of lighten some parts here because it was getting a little bit dark. And then let's go to render pass and ambient occlusion. Forgot to use this. This was environment was just to make a selection of this. Then we got the mist pack. I can delete this and keep that. These were just extra copies of the mist pass that I had. This one was for the mist itself. Then this was multiply, clown normal, and then this color lookup was I used a filter for like the brightness up here, and then this one was for the bluer shadows. See how it kind of like cools it down a little bit. This was another paint layer that I did on top of everything, just to paint a little bit here and then to fix that tangent that was on this guy's head. And that was it. And then after that, what I usually do is that I'll make a copy of everything. Hit Control J, Control E. Okay, so I have everything on one layer. Make a copy of that. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna do a high pass filter on this. So with high pass, it kind of like sharpens everything up a little bit. So we'll go to filter, other, high pass, and then I'm gonna go ahead and change it to overlay. So it kind of like sharpens your brush strokes to some extent, and sometimes it can be like really strong. So I usually lower down the opacity just a little bit. So it's very subtle, you know, it gives it a subtle boost. And then the other thing that I'm gonna do is, where is it? We're gonna do a Gaussian blur on this. Okay. And then we're gonna mask it. I pretty much just want the foreground elements and the background elements to be a little bit blurry to some extent. One thing that I also like to do as a finishing touch is that I'll make a new layer. And then I'll take any like texture brush, grab color, pull down some lines, put it on overlay, just lower down the opacity like a lot, like at 11%. But you know, got these little nice brush strokes kind of just going downwards, which always gives a nice effect. Alright you guys, so that should be all for today. Thank you so much for coming by and watching this video. So I feel like at this point it's kind of like one of those things where I could spend more time on this, but it's not really gonna make it look any better than it already is. I mean, it'll look better, but most of the work is already done. So I could probably spend like more time on this outside of this video and just like tweak little things here and there. But that's kind of like this is kind of like the general workflow I use whenever I'm painting over my 3D renders. It can get super chaotic sometimes. So I always try to stay super open-minded about what I'm rendering and how I'm painting stuff. Always nice to have backups as well. I try to use clipping masks, layer masks wherever I can, so that I can go back and fix things. And even though I rendered out a new render, I still kept my old render as well in my Photoshop file, which came out super handy when it was time to kind of like tweak those parts a little bit, like the foreground elements and stuff. So I definitely have a lot of backups just so that just in case you need to use it again in your final pieces. But that should be all, and this will also be the last video for the year. I'm gonna take the holidays off next week, and I'll be back next year with some more stuff. But I appreciate every single one of y'all watching this video, watching my channel, supporting me up here. It's been fun, it's been really nice, and I'm gonna try to post more consistently next year as well, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Follow along the journey, and with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.